Everybody, it's Leo from Leo Gaming, and today I have another big video for you guys. It is my ultimate guide to the swarm that walks. In this guide, similar to my Lich guide, we're going to go from the very beginning, go step by step, teach you all the steps how to unlock the swarm that walks. But we're going to show you the different story parts. We're going to talk to you about the mechanics when it comes to the Crusade system, as well as the actual interaction with your character. It is very, very unique compared to anything else, and also show you how to effectively level up this character path. Now, this build, I will warn you right off the bat, this path, it has an exponential power curve, but it's kind of weak when you first unlock it. And depending on your class, you can feel really, really pathetic, and you sacrifice more than any other class. If you thought you were lonely and unliked when you chose my Lich path, well, guess what? The Lich path is kind of like the belle of the ball compared to the Swarm that walks. You literally are hated by everybody, but the power you get is immense. The flavor of the story is really, really good. There are some bugs, no pun intended, but it is a really, really fun playthrough. However, you can mess it up a million and one ways, so make sure to follow these steps exactly so you can unlock this successfully and enjoy being pure evil. Now, as always, I'm going to have extensive timestamps below so that if you want to avoid certain spoilers, you can do your best. But again, this is an ultimate guide. Prepare for spoilers, and you can navigate the video to get to the points that you care about the most. As always, I do put a lot of work into these videos, and I made this one based on a community vote, so hopefully you guys really like it. If you do, remember, like, subscribe, smash that notification bell, and more important than anything else, really, drop me a comment. Let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what other videos you want to see me make for this game. Again, I apologize. I'm doing my best. I've been sick the last week and a half, so my voice is going to sound nasally. I apologize, but hopefully you still enjoy this video. Now, without any further ado, let's jump in and take a look at the swarm that walks. Okay, as we begin this swarm guide, I want to point out that the swarm path, much more than any other path, has various steps during which you can completely mess up and knock yourself out of the swarm guide. So, especially up until the point where you actually turn into the swarm or basically pick the mythic path, it's very important that you listen to these steps, as they are not always super obvious as necessary steps. And it all begins here at the beginning of Act 2 when you talk to Queen Galfrey. So what's important when you talk to the Queen here is, as you discuss with her the situation, you're going to basically ask what she's going to do. And you're going to come to this conversation right here. And depending on what you have unlocked as an option, you could be tempted to go with the good or lawful options for Angel or Aeon to force her to come incognito and battle with you. But you absolutely, positively do not want to do this. You need to say, thank you for your reply. She needs to stay away from the battle. So again, do not choose option 1 or 2 here, or you will lock yourself out of the swarm path. The next part of the process to become the walking swarm is when you head over to the Leper Smile, and this is a mandatory part of the mission as you head towards Drezen. What's going to happen is you're going to make your way here, and then you're going to fight this Vescavor Queen. You're going to go ahead and fight and kill her, and I'll go ahead and skip this really quick, this combat. Now, once the combat with the Queen is over, there's going to be a couple of pieces of conversation, and then Anevia is going to say, it's time to get back to our people. I say we destroy the Queen's body. And you're going to have 2 different options, and it's absolutely critical that you select evil, burn the body, but gather as much of the queen slime as you can. Keep it a secret from the troops, and Drezen will send in a suicide unit, wait for the demons to gather their forces, and then bring in the Vescavers. We'll return this gift to those who would destroy us with it. So make sure you select that. And she's going to say, you want to make a weapon out of demon bug shit? Seriously? You better think about this. We have no way to control the swarm. What's that mean? It means the soldiers we send into battle with a barrel of this muck will be the first to be eaten. That's not even a suicide mission. It's a dirty trick like only the cultists do. But we're crusaders. I know, an order is an order. I'll go and gather up the stuff. I don't mind, but think about it. Is this the way you want to fight? Will you still be able to look your people in the eye? Now, if you haven't guessed already, this is a precursor to just a lot of really messed up stuff you're gonna do. And if you are not ready to sacrifice absolutely everything and everyone, then this is not the path for you. But as I stated in the intro, this is an amazing pathway with insanely exponential power growth later on, and it's very, very thematic. But again, this is just the tip of the iceberg with the messed up stuff we're gonna do. Now, once you're done with the interaction of the queen, you have freedom of whatever you want to do. You really can't go wrong up until we get up to Drezen. So feel free to go inside of the cave if you want, do whatever you want to do on that side of things. And then we're going to move forward until we get to the night of preparing for the assault on Drezen, where we make our next big decision. Now, as soon as you move up and prepare to take Drezen, you're going to see here, we're going to get an interaction, random encounter. But really, it's your interaction with your team deciding how you're going to handle the assault. You're going to have an option to listen to a variety of plans. The one that you need to select is the one that says, Anevia, do you still have that barrel of slime we can use to attract a Vescavor swarm? And then, of course, people are not going to be very happy, like Irabeth. Now, as you work towards unlocking the swarm path at Mythic level 8, do note you're going to have to pick a temporary Mythic path until you get there. I chose Demon. You can pick whatever you want, but I feel like evil paths are going to have a more natural playthrough because your decisions are likely to be much more in line with what the swarm kind of does as far as evil options. But again, play however you want to play. Just be ready for kind of a rude awakening if you play good and then swap over to the swarm, which is like neutral evil, chaotic evil, basically. But here I will be making decisions that are in line with the demon side. So after a couple little conversations, it's very important that you're going to notice this. There's going to be a second time where the game prompts you to ask about what's going on. And there is an option to say, end the council. We attack tomorrow at dawn, begin preparations. But what I've noticed is you actually need to hit this option number 4 again. Anevia, do you still have that barrel of slime we can use to attract the Vescavor swarm? And then she has the same response, but now it says you had quite an idea back at the canyon. This is extra text she provides that she did not provide before. We could send small unit as bait, lure as many demons from Drezen as possible, and then turn a swarm in our favor. We'd rid ourselves of an entire army of enemies in one fell swoop, but it's cruel to use our own people like that. They'll be picked to the bone along with the demons. And it's just, I think it's a scumbag thing to do. Sometimes fighters have to be sent to their deaths by feeding to demon bugs. That's not how it's done. I'd burn the barrel just to be on the safe side. And then you again have an option to get out of this, but if you want the swarm pathway, you need to select evil. We will use the mixture in battle. Choose which soldiers will carry the barrel. And remember, they mustn't know they're being sent to their deaths. As you wish. And then you can go ahead and do end the council. We attack tomorrow at dawn. Begin preparations. Now, as you get to Drezen, you're going to notice there's going to be this, in-game cinematic. You're going to notice the swarm already here. And then you're going to also see a unique interaction here in just a moment when it comes to the assault. Now you are going to see this other unique cinematic here, where of course the suicide soldiers are going to come and release the queen's kind of liquid, and they're going to get eaten alive. And the net result here for the battle is that you're going to have a much easier time of the assault. You're going to have some of the bugs you got to fight, but a lot of the demons that you would normally fight are going to be dead. Now, once you have taken back Drezen, you're going to go and have your automatic conversation with Irabeth.
The decision to use Vescavors as weapons. I can't deny that they were effective. And yet you still shouldn't have done it. While the demons did suffer serious losses from the creatures, a lot of our fighters died as well, leaving our soldiers to be eaten by insects. Is that really how we crusaders want to win?
So as you just heard, you get this unique conversation from Irabeth, kind of scolding you for the use of the Vescavors as a weapon. She does not approve, but wait till she sees what else we do.
But that's not all. The Vescavors did not simply disappear. They are still flying around the city, in smaller numbers, praise Iomade. People see small swarms of them here and there. If you don't find a way to purge the city of this pestilence, I'm afraid that it will soon be devoured by a new swarm.
So as you see here, she again kind of warns you of the imminent threat of the Vescavors in the city, and you're gonna get a quest, Demonic Parasites, finding the nest of the Vescavors in Drezen. Okay, so for the Demonic Parasites mission that you're gonna get here at the beginning of Act 3, you need to go to this building right down here in the lower right hand corner. So it's going to be this house, and you will fight some Vescavar, bugs on the way here, and then you're gonna go inside this building. And when you go inside the building, you're going to have a couple more battles. You're going to have to fight some more bugs as well, right off the bat. And you're going to go into the back corner of this building, and you're going to go down below. Now, here in the basement, you're going to find the Vescavar Queen. And she's going to be really, really weak. And when you click on her, it's going to say, the engorged body of the young Queen of the Swarm pulses, oozing corrosive slime. In her buzzing, you hear the barely distinguishable echoes of the now familiar swarm song. Her voice is not yet strong enough to harm you, but it is patently clear that if the creature is permitted to grow and her children to multiply, then soon an anthem of abyssal insects will be humming in the skies above Drezen. For a couple of seconds, you stare at the young monster, unable to take your eyes off of her. Disgusting, but also beautiful in its own way. Hostile, but weirdly close to you. Nauseating, and yet mouth-watering. What's the strange thought? Do you have an option to examine the queen, kill the queen, or leave? You can feel free to examine her, but whatever you do, do not kill the queen. You need to leave her. The young queen of the Vescavar quietly chirps on as you walk away. So make sure you have this interaction, but then go and leave. Right, now I wanted to talk to you for a minute about the Crusade system in general. You'll notice even your interface here has the swarm bugs already flying around, which is pretty cool. Now, I'm about to give a major spoiler, and obviously if you're watching this video, you're probably, hopefully, ready for spoilers. But anything you want to do with the Crusade system, meaning any of these decrees, unlocking any of the relics and upgrading them, make sure you do everything in Act 3. By the time you come back to Drezen in Act 5 and choose to be part of the Swarm, this entire system that you're seeing here, as far as decrees, the basic events, your economy buildings, developments of the towns, all of that will be null and void. You will be the Swarm. You're not going to care about infrastructure. All you will care about is eating, consuming, and growing your swarm. So, I would not spend too much time building up the forts and building up regular armies. You'll see more what I mean about this when we get to Act 5 of this guide. But for now, the only thing in retrospect that I probably would have done is I would have spent time upgrading all the different relics that you found and you find through Act 3. Get those because they lead you to have nice equipment. If you don't care, then move on. But just note that any of the choices you make here in Act 3 are going to become pretty much null and void when we get to Act 5. Now, for a bit in Act 3, you're going to get to play like normal until you get to Ivory Sanctum. And Ivory Sanctum is the next big step when it comes to your quest progression. So in the Ivory Sanctum, you're going to meet Jeribeth, and she's going to tell you that her domain here has been kind of taken over, or she now has to cohabitate with Xanthir, the Plagued One. And this is basically the current kind of swarm that walks. And she says, a swarm that walks, a mesmerizing creation. Who could have imagined that a mortal could have been turned into something so extraordinary? He's behind many of the calamities that have befallen you. It is from his hands that myself and other demons have received our new abilities. Kill him and the lords will struggle to find his equal for a long time. I won't simply stand aside, I will help you as well. I'll tell you what I know and ensure that my servants do not attack you here in the Sanctum. So this conversation here is kind of giving you hints of just how powerful the swarm that walks is, the Xanthir that you're going to be facing, and also hints at the power that you may get in the future if you take on this path. So you can go ahead and go through these conversations however you want, and then you're going to need to make your way through the Sanctum until you get to the end when you face Xanthir, and we'll go ahead and fast forward to that. Okay, and after you complete the main part of the Ivory Sanctum, you don't need to do any of the optional stuff. You can quite literally just go to the outside portion and then go down this path here where you're going to have the event of the angels, and then go right into the laboratory. And as we enter the laboratory here, we're about to have a conversation with the swarm that walks. Xanthir Vang, a figure in a loose hooded robe, stands facing away from you, hands raised in the air. I've given you a gift of strength. Arise and fight in the name of Diskari, of Baphomet, of whoever you please. I command you, defend my laboratory. Fools, feckless, useless morons, I'm surrounded by idiots. What have I done to deserve this? What crime have I committed that the universe would punish me so? And then there'll be some comments by people, obviously, depending on who you have in a group. The figure in the hooded robe slowly turns around. Its face and hands are a writhing mass of locusts. You listen closely, you can hear the rhythmic raspings of little feet and wings rubbing against each other. I despise my idiot students who cannot even take a single step without an order from me. I despise demons, self-satisfied imbeciles who prefer to tear husks of flesh from each other, then carry out my instructions. I despise Diskari and Baphomet for forcing me to work with them. Chittering of the locust grows louder, sounding threatening. I despise you, Vandal. You came into my laboratory, smashing up my specimens and interfering with my work. Away with you. Get out now. And then you're going to have a battle with him, so we'll go ahead and have this battle, and then I'll show you what happens right after the battle. Now once you're done fighting him, it says, defeated Xanthir drops to his knees. For a few drawn-out seconds, all you can hear is the rustling of the locust shifting under his robe. The sound suddenly morphs into rasping, unnatural laughter. Who could have predicted that a Vandal, my enemy and the enemy of my masters, would be the one to rid me of my excruciating servitude? You are an unforeseen, unknown quantity that has solved the impossible equation. Such an eloquent, simple solution to all my problems. The eerie laughter dies away as quickly as it came. Xanthir lifts his head, looks out at you from his locust swarm face. You've earned a reward. I know why you are here and what you seek. You destroyed my laboratory, stood in the way of science, and halted my demon transformation experiments. But I doubt you know the source of the Nibrian crystals necessary for the process. I will show you the path to truth, Vandal, but first you must answer 2 of my questions. And you can have a conversation with them, and eventually you want to say, ask your questions. And in case you're wondering what the answers are, it's Drezen. And that's where the Nahindrian crystals were being sent. And here you can ask, who are you, Xanthir Vang? And if you do, he'll give you a little bit of a response. He's going to say, I am a higher being. I surpassed my mortal shell, discarded it, transformed myself into a larva, becoming a locust. My loyal service to the dark arts has not gone unrewarded. But Baphomet and the Diskari both gave me their consideration. I earned respect on this side of the whirlwind, and the only person whose respect I have not won is your mentor, Arela Vorlesh. That is all that is permissible for you to know. And then you can ask him some more about the swarm state if you'd like. You can say, I want to know more. How did you achieve this state? He says, I won't be telling you anything. I did not spend years conducting research, carrying out experiments, and studying forbidden texts just to give it all away to some vandal. Sacrifice I've made, the impossible truth my mind has had to encompass, Diskari's philosophy, Baphomet's philosophy, Aristogal's riddles, the nebulous ravings of lesser-known demons such as Izyagna. You have probably never even heard their names before. It's enough that you have managed to get your hands on my notes. They say there is no king's road to knowledge, but for Vandal there isn't so much as their track. If you want to achieve what I have, then follow the path I had to take every single step. And very important emphasis here. This is a big part about this guide. You gotta follow everything exactly, otherwise you could mess this up on a myriad of different steps. Now I want to point out you can find extra notes that are not key to the story throughout this laboratory, and they kind of give you thematic information. He's got notes on his experiments and his feedback. So if you want to kind of take some time and read a little bit of the lore behind the swarm and his transformation, you can find it in here. And then finally, you can also say, what's it like to be a swarm? It is impossible to explain to someone who has not made the same exalted journey. Endless bliss, endless splendor, endless solitude among the lower creatures. There is no one who can understand me now. Now at this point, you want to go ahead and kill him. If you keep talking to him, there may be an option that pops up for you that you can say, hey, they're going to trap you. It's all a trick. And if you do that, you have to fight him again. And if you had trouble with the fight, because depending on how geared out you are in your difficulty, it can be a tricky fight. Well, then you may want to avoid that second fight. I know in one of my playthroughs I did that and I beat him the first time and then he beat me up the second time. So go ahead and kill him, put him out of his misery. Farewell, Vandal. I would thank you if I hated you any less than my master. May Baphomet and Diskari burn, and may you burn with them. So at this point you can loot up this laboratory and then finish up the quest and then head back to Drezen. Now, once you're back in Drezen, you're going to get a new decree. It's called Xanthir's Experiments. The commander came across the notes of Xanthir dying. The experiment they describes are horrible, inhumane, and intriguing. Xanthir used to submit himself and his victims to metamorphosis in an attempt to become a living swarm united by a single consciousness. The commander can repeat the experiments, but at a very high cost. He will have to expose numerous mortals to painful vivisections, not to mention the fact that the commander herself will be subject to unbearable suffering. No doubt the horror of the procedure will turn many crusaders away from their leader. Furthermore, there is no certain reward for such a venture. Apart from a better understanding of the insect's nature and a moderate yet questionable gain in power, knowledge gleaned from the experiment outcome will have no practical value, not yet at least. So you are going to take a hit in morale of 20, and you're going to remove units with a total value of 500. And that kind of happens randomly and automatically, it seems like. So here I had saved it with a day to go. So let me show you what happens when you complete this. Now once you complete this, you can head back into Drezen. Now as soon as you head back into Drezen, you're going to have this event where Nevia comes and she's going to say, hey, listen, something I want to bend your ear about. And Nevia's tone is supremely nonchalant, but it's clear she's deeply troubled about something. As you know, it's my job to be your eyes and ears, to know what people are saying in the streets and the barracks, warn you about the little problems before they can turn into real trouble, right? Now, whether you believe what your eyes and ears are telling you, that's completely up to you. But you should hear me out and take heed to what I'm about to say. I'll put it plainly. If you keep going the way you are, you're bringing a lot more than unpleasantness, a lot more than trouble down on all the heads, down on all our heads. You'll bring a full-blown catastrophe. You catch my drift, and basically you can respond, I presume you're referring to my experiments and research involving the insects from the abyss? And she says, exactly. What in Desna's name is the matter with you? Doing experiments that would turn even Baphomet's stomach? Did you think you'd be able to keep them a secret? Well, the bug's out of the bag. The rumors are all over Drezen. At first, I thought it was a disinformation being put about by cultists. I couldn't believe it when I found out that at least a quarter of the horrible stories are actually true. Now, at this point, it's time pretty much to double down, and you can respond however you want to respond here. I don't know what happens if you say it's a horrible mistake, but basically this acts as a warning system to you to say, hey, stop, because bad things are going to happen if you keep continuing. But we don't have to explain ourselves to her. And you see here, basically she says, hey, nothing's super horrible happened yet. You can stop what you're doing and things will be okay, but you really need to knock this off. And then she says, just know that if you do end up turning into a walking swarm of locusts, Desna forbid, very soon you won't have any allies left. Who's going to stick around to be a locust food? Your soldiers will desert you, your companions will abandon you, your friends will turn their backs on you. Whatever power you think you might gain, you'll be enjoying it alone. And this is not an understatement. Again, I want to emphasize, if you're going down the swarm path, you will lose absolutely all your allies and all your friends, but you will receive some awesome powers that are, in my opinion, worth the swap if you like the playstyle. Now, because the swarm path is primarily a Mythic 8 plus feature, so it's kind of an end game Mythic path, you're not going to have that much more swarm interactions after this point in Act 3. So you're going to finish Act 3, you're going to head into the Abyss in Act 4, and you're going to be kind of following the pathway of whatever your initial Mythic path was. So for me it was Demon, but whichever you're choosing. And then the next big thing that's going to happen is going to be once we return back to Drezen. So this is where I am at this point in the story. You go back to the Midnight Fane from the Abyss, and we're returning to Drezen. So as soon as you return, you're going to see a unique new story element. So the last time you left Drezen, the air was filled with the sound of the city, the hum of conversation, the noise of the streets, carts rolling across the cobblestone, and vendors hawking their wares. But now those sounds have been replaced by the crackle of flames, the roar of demons, the wail of the victims, and, loudest of all, the constant droning of a new, fully established swarm of Vescavers. You suddenly remember the gruesome experiments you conducted on yourself when you're trying to replicate the work of Xanthir Vang. Could this swarm be waiting for you? So you can listen closely. The hymn of the Vescavors rings out over the city. They praise the Abyss and that gave birth to them in a fierce, triumphant, maddening cacophony of sound. Ordinary mortals might think that this noise is simply the buzzing of insects, but you know that the Vescavars are echoing the song of their queen. You spared her life, and now her offspring have flooded the city. You can feel the queen's presence nearby, and it makes your skin crawl. The scars that were created when you replicated Xanthir Vang's experiments begin to itch, and you feel a sudden urge to scratch them. This young swarm is so loyal, so obedient, so eager, an instrument of your will and an extension of yourself, but the swarm cannot have two leaders. So you can try and take control of the swarm, and it says you try to subjugate the insects and bring them under control, but they ignore you. They are ruled by a different power. The queen has grown stronger in your absence. You can sniff the air. City reeks of ashes and rotten corpses, but there's another scent in the air. Ordinary mortals would not be able to detect the subtle, sweet aroma of pheromones, but your heightened sense of smell allows you to recognize the swarm's queen's significant scent. You are certain that she is somewhere nearby. And then what you want to do is you want to click the Vescavar queen is somewhere nearby. I will find her and destroy her. The queen's song and scent of her pheromones beckon to you like a lover inviting you to a secret rendezvous. You are filled with a sudden, fierce desire to find the queen. You want her more than you have ever wanted anything in your whole life. And you're going to get the quest Regicide. And then you're going to want to go ahead and head outside into the city. Okay, and as you make your way outside of Drezen, you're going to want to make your way to the bottom right-hand corner. This is where you found the queen originally, but now it's been kind of overgrown, so you're going to go into this abandoned house, and you are going to have a couple of fights on the way down to the queen. So when you come into the basement, you're going to find the queen and a couple of her servants or guards. I'm going to go ahead and wipe them out, and let's see what happens right after that. And then once the queen is down, it'll say, the queen bows before you. She is battered and wounded, and her swarm echoes her plaintive song of pain and hatred. An acrid fluid oozes from her wounds and fills the air with its sharp, pungent scent. The smells fill you with desire, a burning intensity beyond the understanding of any mortal. It is more powerful than your thirst for power, more insatiable than your constant hunger, and more irresistible than lust. You want this queen, you want to devour her and make her a part of yourself. You wish to replicate Xanthir Vang's experiments and go even further. The old mage lacked courage and imagination. You can accomplish what he could not. And you need to make sure that you devour the queen. Ah, yum, yum, yum. There are not many who can say they have feasted on the flesh of a queen, other than Diskari and perhaps Xanthir Vang. You are the only one in the world to experience this pleasure. This is more satisfying than food and more intimate than sex. She becomes you, and you become her. And the buzz of the Vescavars become a wedding hymn, praising your blasphemous union with the queen. And all of a sudden, they're friendly to you, and your regicide is complete. Now you're going to keep making your way up through Drezen after the Regicide event until you get to the gates as you're heading towards the Citadel. And this is quite literally your point of no return. I'm going to go through the event right now for you as we choose to side and choose the swarmed out walks. But do note, after this, there is no going back. So once you go into the Citadel and talk to the storyteller, it's going to take you to this event where you're facing down the hordes of demons. And if this is your first playthrough, this is going to be a standout that you have regardless of what path you choose. And then depending on what path you do choose, it's going to give you kind of a slightly different outcome. And so here is the big choice you're making. So Orangofda says you are just a jumped up mortal insect. You are nobody. And you have a unique option. If you've done everything up to this part correctly, you'll have the option evil, requires swarm mythic path. I am the swarm, and you are food for the swarm. And then power rushes through your body, almost ripping it apart. The wound in your chest bursts open, a spray of bloody droplets. The might bestowed upon you by the abyss and Arelu Vorlesh erupts in the world, and you pay for it in the purest agony. You're overwhelmed by hunger, as well as hatred towards the food that dares to refuse to satisfy that hunger. There is more hunger and hatred in you than one mortal soul can contain. For these feelings do not belong to you alone. Countless tiny wings stir in motion all over Drezen as the swarm flies to its mistress's aid. And then here comes the tidal wave. Darren says, do you honestly plan to replace your army with a swarm of insects? Well, good luck with that, but you have to do it without my help. And Greyboard's like, holy mother of, you know what? I didn't sign up for this. If you continue down this path, it won't be working with you anymore. Won't be the only one, I bet. Woljif, not a fan either. Are you crazy? I'm warning you. If you turn into a huge bunch of flies, I'm out of here. And not just me. Anyone who ever even a quarter of a brain will run away screaming their heads off. And then Sile, I beg you, as a friend, for the sake of everything we've been through together, call off the swarm and stop trying to imitate Xanthir Vang. Stop this madness. I can't remain your companion otherwise. No one from our party will follow a monster. You don't hear anyone. The swarm descends upon the battlefield and the feast begins. Myriads mandibles burrow into living flesh, making no distinction between demon and mortal. friend and foe. And they all get eaten. And now we're gonna have the scene here of Iomede. And I'm gonna skip a lot of the basic text, but I will kind of pause and show you the unique conversation option for the swarm in case you're curious.
You have chosen a path that is unspeakably vile. One that would make even demons shudder. Perhaps this blasphemous power will help you defeat the Abyss. But at what cost? Do you really wish to become an enemy to everything that lives?
As you see here, Iomede not too pleased that you're choosing the path of the swarm that walks. So once you're done talking to the demon and Iomede, here comes the big choice. And if you've done everything right, you'll have your normal path, the legend that's available to everybody. And here we go, swarm.walks. And we're going to go over all these abilities and features in just a second. But for now, we're going to go ahead and select swarm.walks. Now you will notice that you're going to immediately lose all of your previous mythic options for your previous mythic path. We're going to unlock Mythic Path 8. We're going to talk about this in just a moment. We're also going to be talking about respeccing your character because you probably will want to. But for now, I'm just going to pick a quick option and we'll focus on the story. And here's the actual written choice that we pick. I hate both of you. I hate everyone. Everyone. That's the response for the Swarm Mythic Path. Your voice buzzes like the wings of myriad insects. The world breaks into pieces, reflecting in a countless facets of countless eyes that stare at you from everywhere. The goddess and the demon lord stand before you. They are so different, but now the expression in their eyes is the same. Revulsion tinged with horror.
Ugliness incarnate. An evil that even demons despise. I don't want to have anything to do with you.
Ugh, how repulsive.
You accepted a gift of power from the Abyss, but you have eclipsed your benefactors in unholiness.
You're ready to answer, but your lips are paralyzed. Your entire body freezes, and the swarm, so obedient a moment ago, starts scurrying around mindlessly back and forth. An alien will shackle you. Indestructible, inhuman, terrifying will. Huge shadow towers over you, and you can tell who it is before you hear it speak.
Despicable Iomede and you, deplorable queen of the Midnight Isles, you wanted to turn this mortal into a weapon against me. A pathetic ploy. Now she is similar to me, and will serve me before she joins my swarm.
That will never happen.
Iomede's eyes flash with blinding light, and a moment later, a pillar of fire strikes you. Feel your skin sizzling and charring, your eyes boiling and bulging, your muscles reduced to ash. The unbearable torment lasts much longer than the body of a common mortal could handle, but in the end, you finally plunge into the merciful darkness of oblivion. The light is gone and so is the pain. After all, you don't have the ability to feel pain. You no longer have a body, and yet you are still here. Your rage binds you to this place, a deep abiding hatred for demons, deities, mortals, a hatred for everyone and everything. You hear the sound of distant voices somewhere beyond the veil of darkness that obscures your vision. Arushale, what a horrible tragedy. Your power could have saved us from the whirlwind, but in the end it brought only death and ruin. Mortal souls are so easily corrupted. I will not forget you, Commander, and will not repeat your mistakes. Farewell. Regal says, so the leader of the Crusade turned out to be a traitor. This outcome is unfortunate, but it is not unexpected. I have suspected for some time that it would take direct divine intervention to save Mendevian army. My commanding officers will want to hear a detailed report of this fiasco. Sela says, praise the goddess for punishing the traitor, and shame on all of us for not realizing her soul was rotten to the core, but the crusade will continue without the commander who's with me. So farewell. I loved you. It's a pity that love could not have saved you from what you decided to become, but I swear that I will never forget you. I will always remember happy moments we spent together and the tragic way it all ended. Darren. Now, that's how you go out with a bang. It took the intervention of a goddess to kill the commander. You have to admit, it's pretty impressive. Farewell, Zazala, your magnificent scoundrel. When I return to Mendev, I shall find the best bard and pay them to compose a ballad about your meteoric rise and tragic downfall. Woljif says, yeah, that was something. Snap of a finger and she turned into a pile of ash. But I'd better get out of here while I still can. I don't want to become brunch for a bunch of bugs. Wending says, this miserable pile of ash used to be my mistress? Better go find myself someone else to follow, someone stronger and smarter. Greybor, right. Well, my contract's officially at an end. I wonder why I have been so unlucky with my employers lately. I hope the next one will try and eat me alive, at least. Nenio, what a pity that the experiment of the great Arelu Vorlesh had to end this way. Well, farewell then, girl. We're not a bad follower, but I'm not going to stay here anymore. Anivia, so that's it then. An empty city, locusts everywhere, and a pile of ash in the middle of it all. Never thought the crusade would end like this. But if the goddess hadn't intervened, things could have gone a lot worse. Well, it's time to get to work. Drezen is buried beneath a layer of ash, dust, and rotting corpses. Somebody needs to clean up the city before the queen returns. And the Diskari pops in. In the silence that follows, you heard a loud rasping laugh. Killed, cursed, and abandoned by everyone. But this is how the similar one meets her end, in dust and in disgrace. And you can talk to him. Just get out of my head. The similar one wishes to rebel against the will of the great Diskari. Let her try. It will be interesting to watch. And then you can ask, what have you done to me? Death. But for the swarm, this word has another meaning. The swarm can survive a great deal, even death of its mistress. The similar one prepared for this when she altered her body by following the teachings of another similar one. She did not yet know how to come back, but she will soon learn. What have you done to me? This insolent little mortal tried to become like the great Diskari. She succeeded, and that's commendable. But does this mortal understand the nature of the swarm? Does she know how to control it? Does she know its strengths and weaknesses? Can this mortal understand the great truth of the swarm? No. Her existence is too brief, too fleeting for her to grasp such a profound truth. The similar one knew that she had to devour the Vescovar queen and subjugate its swarm, but there is danger in every feast. Sometimes the devourer digests the food, and sometimes the food poisons the devourer. The locusts of the great Diskari were hidden within the swarm of the similar one, subjugated to her will, and one locust, small but strong, found its way inside the body of a similar one. As long as the locust remains secured in a hiding place, the similar one will not be free from Diskari's will, until such time Diskari decides to devour her. And then now it will pop up the option requires Swarm Mythic Path. I'll be back. I'll devour everyone who betrayed me. Then I'll devour you and your kingdom. And then I'll consume all of Golarion. The previous ebbing hatred now fills your being once more. Becomes thicker and denser until you feel that you have flesh again. Flesh that has been reduced to ash, scattered throughout all Drezen. Flesh that trembles on the wings of the swarm that is enthralled to you. Your will, your hatred, your hunger will not allow you to simply disappear. Your will, your hatred, your hunger will bring you back. With your will, you will subjugate. With your hatred, you will wreak vengeance. With your hunger, you will devour. Diskari says, good, very good. Let the similar one be reborn. I will follow her progress. The insects swarm towards the place of your death. They gather together into a tight group until they look like a mass of dark buzzing flesh. You cannot control the swarm well enough to become like Xanthir Vang. Your mind is not prepared to reject the physical form to which you are accustomed. That will come in time. For now, however, you will inhabit a body made of insects. This insect body bears a passing resemblance to your previous form, and after a moment it opens its eyes. Nevia says, what, the commander? Nevia is clearly clearing away some rubble and debris, stares at you for a frozen shock. You can talk to her, and when you're done talking to her, you can say, I'm still the commander, and Drezen is still my city. I'm returning to the Citadel. Report to me there in half an hour. Nevia stares at your new body in disgust. Finally, she salutes. Yes, Commander. Frightened by the creature the commander has become, the generals of the Crusade have stirred the remnant of Regin's garrison to revolt. They have left the city and intend to fight the swarm in the field. The fools believe they can stand a chance of winning in such conditions. So, with the initial report, basically, all the armies have abandoned you. So, whatever generals you had, they are gone. Whatever forces you had, they're gone. And then the city's mine, but the war is not yet won. I must plan our next move. Whatever you say, what do you want to start? And then you're just going to have a couple of texts that will kind of set up some of the quests that are going to be coming up. And at the end, she says, Commander, you don't need me to tell you that there are loads of folks in your army, those that haven't fled or been eaten by insects who fear and despise you. Despise all that. Even the people who call you an unholy abomination understand one thing. Your only chance of victory, the last thing standing between us and the abyssal hordes. They're all assembling here in the Drezen you corrupted, and they're gonna fight on your side, even if they're planning to turn their blades against you as soon as you close the whirlwind. When you're ready to head off for the final battle, come back here, your army will be waiting. And then you're gonna have this automatic event here with the Diskari cultists. You do not recognize the people who have entered the hall. They do not wear any insignias that would identify them. But from their appearance, you know that they must be cultists of Diskari. They have battered armor, dirty clothes, and their mutilated bodies and are infected with squirming insects. Their crazed expressions, trembling lips, and drooling mouths leave you in no doubt as to their identity. There's an insane light in their eyes as they fall on their knees and raise their hands towards you. Our Lady, praise be to the true Lady of the Swarm. May Our Lady devour everyone and everything. May the false idol be brought low. May Our Lady reign over all the plains. We are here to swear our loyalty to you and to bring you good tidings. Wise Anamora, who once served the false idol, has seen the truth. She has heard your call and recognized your authority. And by the way, the false idol is Diskari, as they keep implying here. She serves you now, Our Lady. She has joined your swarm, and she wishes to pay her respect to your person. And this is, you can ask, who are you? Who's Anamora? Her kin lives underground and worships false deities. She came to the surface when she heard the call of the swarm, but she was led astray by false idols. Namora is a wise seer. She hears the song of the swarm and understands its nature. In her mystic trances, she learns terrible, merciless truths that eat away at her mind like thousands of biting mandibles. And an echo of Diskari. Priests are the worst kind of mortal. They try to curry favor from the deity because they hope that their deity will grant them power. Then they convince themselves that the power righteously belongs to them and begin to scheme to take their patron's place. And Amora acted like she was loyal to me, but she was loyal only to herself. Our betrayal comes as no surprise. Her loyalty to similar ones be exactly the same. Now you'll notice this is a message that's a telepathic message, and it's not always clear that you're going to have Diskari or the echo of Diskari communicate with you randomly, because you have that link with them based on that bug that's kind of inside of you. And you can ask them who they are. We are no one, Our Lady. We are no one, but we are part of which will devour everything. The cultist stares at you reverently with his one good eye. His other eye socket oozes foul-smelling pus and has a fat, squirming locust inside. We abandoned our names when we became part of the swarm. We are its soldiers, its grasping claws and biting mandibles. Your claws and mandibles, O Great One. We were blind when we fought for the weak swarm of the false idol. May his name be forgotten. Now we see the truth. You are the true swarm. Only you are worthy of worship. The cultist prostrates himself before you, and his forehead leaves a smear of blood and pus on the ground. And then the echo of Diskari says to you, does the similar one wish to be worshipped? Does she feel pleased when mortals kneel before her and praise her? If she does, she misunderstands what it means to be swarm. Only a mortal is dependent on the opinions of other mortals. And you can keep talking to him, but at this point you can also say, I will allow you to stay in Drezen. You might prove useful. Our Lady is most gracious. Our Lady has allowed us to remain close to her. Blessed be Drezen, the new creator of the swarm. We will stay close to Our Lady, command us, rule us, devour us. And then Echo says, those who abandon me will return to me. Those who become food to the similar one will become my food after I devour the similar one. We are the similar one, in case this is confusing to you. Nothing has changed. And then, depending on who was your path before, so here I was the demon, and Yaz was my contact, and they basically just said, oh man, you've turned into Swarm to walk, peace out. So, basically we get abandoned by the demon side. Now you're going to notice a couple of things right away here. You're no longer going to have access to the Managed Crusade Affairs. If you try and click on it, nothing happens. At this point, what you're probably going to want to do is go and respec your character. Now, we will again discuss these abilities in just a second, but I will say that because you are all alone, notice you have no companions. You cannot have any companions. Eventually, you will have other characters in your group, and I'll explain that as we go on. But for the majority of the game, it's going to start kind of difficult, and so you're going to probably want a character of some martial prowess that can take a hit. I decided to respec as a Slayer that dual wielded with a scimitar and a shield and beefed up my armor and AC and made sure I had some physical defense. I also chose Slayer because they have a good amount of skill points, so I wanted to make sure that I could pass a lot of different skill checks like trickery, but also perception, etc. So it's up to you. But again, a character that has some martial prowess is probably recommended. Another very important thing right now as you look into respecking, if you're going to respec your character, do it now. I'm going to be explaining a size of swarm mechanic, and I made a mistake where I had respect and then I played for a bit and I respect again, and when I respect, it reset my whole swarm progress, which really sucks. So again, if you're going to respec, figure out what kind of main class you're going to play right when you turn into the swarm, and then don't change it. Otherwise, you're going to lose a lot of your power progression potential. So I will go ahead and fast forward until the part where I respect, and then you're going to return to the Citadel. And once you've done that, basically after you've kind of left here and come back, it's going to proc another event that's going to let you choose some unit options for your Crusader General that we'll discuss in just a second. Alright, once you finish respecking and return to the Citadel, you're going to have this little event pop up. It says, Cultist, did you summon me, mistress? The cultist's cloudy eyes stare at you of infinite adoration. Odd, you don't recall calling for anyone. And you could say, I didn't summon you. Not with words, no, but you were thinking of us, of your loyal swarm. You wish to discuss something with someone capable of speech. You've lately been plagued by troubled thoughts. It seems you use your powers over the swarm to summon someone without realizing it. Diskari says to you telepathically, how very mortal of you. Once the similar one truly embraces her swarm, she will no longer need to speak to it in words. So, what exactly did I want to discuss? More servants of this false idol are starting to see the light. One after another, we leave his swarm and join yours. How do you wish to make use of us? Will you leave us as we came to you, miserable pieces of mortal flesh ready to fight and die in your name? Or will you grant us bliss by making us food for your beautiful children? So what this basically is your option on how you want to handle your units. So with other mythic paths, you'll get choices between one type of unit or another. So here's a little confusing because at first it only gives you this option here, it looks like. So if you make a decision, I will keep your cultists alive and let them remain in my army. If you do, you get 1250 cultists of the swarm, but these guys suck. 25 health, 6 AC, 2 to 4 base damage. They're just bad, so I would not recommend this. Instead, what you can do is say, what will happen if you can ask him what will happen if I feed the cultist to insects, and it'll explain, it'll be the happiest days of our lives. Maggots will squirm in our flesh until we are transformed into a myriad of wonderful tiny insects. I'm going to decide which ones. Locusts, perhaps, or even beautiful tiny spiders. If you're particularly fortunate, it will transform into glorious Vescivores, the pinnacle of perfection. So I recommend, and it's up to you, I have made a decision. I will feed the cultists to insects. Diskari says, Diskari's heart rejoices whenever another mindless mortal becomes food for the tiny, swarming perfections. Such is the fate awaiting each of them, sooner for some, later for others. And then you have one of three options. I want to point out that you will end up getting all three in your army, and you will get an ability I'll discuss to summon all three. So what you're really choosing and which one you're going to get a big boost to initially, and then the ability you get. So let's take a look at these three options. The first one is you're going to get 600 spiders, and they have 162 health each, 20 AC, 3 damage reduction, and then they do a range of 1 to 11 damage. And then you're going to get your spider swarms get the Chaos Hammer ability, which does basically 3d6 times unit damage, magic damage to all non-chaotic units in a 3x3 area. The problem is you're going to be finding a lot of chaotic units going into the end game. So I didn't like this, but it's up to you. The second option is for locusts. You can get 850 locusts. This is the one I actually chose. These have 81 health, 18 AC, 2 damage reduction, 1 to 10 damage. So notice they have less health and AC, but per unit they do almost as much damage as the spiders, but you get a lot more of them. And they actually have a pretty cool ability. It's once a battle, but you can bestow a curse anywhere on the battle on a unit and get a -4 penalty to attack and saving throws, which is pretty good. Or your final option is food for the Vescivores. You get 250 Vescivore swarms, 179 hit points, 21 AC. They do have 2 damage reduction. They do get, the resistances you hear, and they do 4 to 14 damage. So these are the most damaging, but you get the fewest of them, of the 3. And then if you do, you get the ability to dispel. So dispel all positive effects from the target enemy unit or negative effects from target allied unit. And again, this is once per battle. So pick whichever one you want. Again, I chose the Locust. It seemed like the pretty good middle ground. And then you will get all 3 units. You're just not going to get the buffs from all 3. And the cultists say, may the ladies will be done. You need not give the order. We will obey your thoughts and gladly march into the mouths of your children. Man, just suicide. Get eaten. Nom 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 nom. Alright, next we're going to go ahead and take a look at what we look like at Mythic rank 8. And it can be a little confusing at first, so I'll try and explain. So you start as the host of the Great Swarm. You're not technically the end-all be-all swarm quite yet, but you become a host of the Great Swarm, which now lives inside your body. This symbiosis gives you fast healing and additional hit points depending on the size of your swarm. So you're going to become more tanky, and you're going to get regeneration basically the greater the size of your swarm is. To increase the size of the swarm, you need to devour other living beings, and we're going to discuss how that works in just a second. Now, you're going to have basically a basic swarm form state, and you're going to have 3 potential abilities. 2 are in combat, 1 is out of combat. So swarm form is you return all your swarm into your body, you gain DR5/dash plus your swarm size, and bonus to natural armor equal to 4 plus your swarm size. Now we'll be discussing the swarm size mechanic in a second, but just note this can increase higher and higher and higher. You will start kind of weak, but you will get very, very powerful. So in this form, you're gonna get higher armor, natural armor bonuses as you get more powerful, and you're gonna have that natural damage reduction. Now, initially, you're going to probably be utilizing your direct, think of it like a direct damage spell almost, but ability. It's called Swarm Infest. You send a part of your swarm to infest an enemy. It makes the target blind and deals 88 physical damage each round. The damage increases by 2d8 for each point of your swarm size. Now, you do start at swarm size 0. But to give you an idea, it's not unusual to get like 7, 8, or eventually, as you'll see, potentially 9 on this swarm size, which is bonkers. And I think you can just keep going if you were to farm this for a long time. So even if, let's say, swarm size 4, that's going to give you 8 physical, 8d8 plus an additional 8d8. That's 16d8 physical damage per round. Now, if the target dies while under the effect, it automatically is devoured. Sometimes this worked. I don't know if it's sometimes bugged out or it's because if you don't die to the effect, but another physical attack, for example, you may have to manually devour things, but it's supposed to devour them. So when the ability ends, by activating Swarm Form ability, you are healed for the amount of damage you've dealt to the enemy with Swarm Infest. So this will easily be a complete heal a lot of times. Additionally, the target must make a will saving throw. DC is 15 plus double your mythic rank. Or become panicked. You will panic things constantly. And it's hilarious because it's going to run away. You can focus on damaging something else. And they're just going to keep taking this dot damage, eventually just kind of dying. It's quite vicious. And only gets more powerful as your swarm increases. And then you have Swarm Feast. And this ability is bonkers. It starts a little on the weak side, but eventually, if you follow this guide towards the end, you're going to see just how powerful it can be. So your swarm flies out of your body and starts attacking all enemies in a 50-foot radius. Every round, all enemies in the area are dealt, and the calculation is 4 plus your swarm size, d6 physical damage. So at first it's going to be 4d6 physical damage to everything every round. If they die while in the area, they are automatically devoured. Again, I found that this doesn't always work, so you sometimes have to manually devour them, but that's okay. In addition, any ranged or ranged touch attacks against you have a 50% chance to miss. And again, it's going to cancel the Swarm Form and Swarm Infest if you cast it. So you're swapping between these 3 modes at any given time. It doesn't cost anything. There's no cooldown on them. You can swap up with them as much as you want. And then you do have the Devour ability. And this is something that you'll normally do once you kill off a fight encounter. You're going to devour everything. You send a part of your swarm to devour a corpse to increase the size of your swarm. The increase depends on the CR. CR is basically just like how difficult the monster is of the devoured corpse. When the amount of eaten enemies hits a threshold, you gain permanent increased bonuses from other swarm than walks abilities. And we'll be discussing those. Now here in the lower left hand corner, you can see here is the size of your swarm. So you're going to have this number and it starts at 0/0. It says again, by devouring victims, swarm increases the power of all its abilities dependent on the CR of the devoured creatures. The first number is the sum of the CRs of all the devoured creatures. The second is the current size of the swarm. So you're going to have to hit certain thresholds. And I also want to point out, when you start devouring things, it doesn't automatically update. Sometimes different things trigger it, or you could quick save and quick load and it will update it. So it's a little wonky, and it takes a little bit to ramp up. So when you first start devouring things, don't think the mechanic is broken. I thought at first it was. I'm like, I'm devouring things and this number is not going up. It's not a bug, it just takes a little bit to update the calculation. Now I have a very important warning for you about devouring. You're going to notice that around Drezen you can actually talk to people and have an option to devour them. Be careful who you devour, especially a healer. So if you talk to a healer, you actually have an option to devour them. You can say you are no longer useful, but you can still feed me. The amount of devour points you get for this is not that much, but if you devour them, you can no longer respec. So be very, very careful who you devour. This will also bug out some quests currently, and I'll mention which ones it bugs out later on in the guide. So do be careful when you utilize this feature. Now once you exit Drezen and you get to the world map, you're going to notice some dramatic changes. First of all, there's no more morale. Your crusade is gone. Second, all the little sub-cities are gone. There's none more of that. There is no more going and making buildings in Drezen. You have absolutely no use for materials. You can click on this recruit button. It does absolutely nothing for you here. Now, what do you have? You do get a general. And he's going to start with a nice large amount of locust swarms. In this case, I have 1,089. But remember, I got a bonus because I chose locust swarm as my unit type. I got 194 spiders and 139 Vescavar swarms. And then, whatever your general was, it does not matter. You get this brand new general. Don't worry, he's a total badass. He's a caster. Let's look at everything he has. First of all, you can have up to 7 units in there. He has a power of 54. His infirmary size is 5,250. He's level 15. He has the Masters of Maneuver Forge. That's why you can have up to 7 units. Even though I think I only once added different types of units. He's Intimidate 1 and 2. That's minus 30 to combat morale for enemies. So they're going to run away and like lose turns constantly. You have Favored Enemy Large. All units in the army inflict 15% more damage against large units. You're going to have Tactician 1, 2, and 3. And so this one is, at the start of a battle, a few units can act out of turn. So basically, you're going to have extra actions at the beginning. You have a ton of different abilities in combat, as I'll show in a second. Fearsome Formation, Overwhelming Shout, Stunning Trap, Weaken Trap, Haste and Slow. These are going to be probably your favorites. Ice Bomb, Penetrating Strike, Innervation, Stone Call, Caravan Master, so you have plus 15 movement. Reduction of losses 5%, and Heroic Officer, all units have plus 5 bonus to combat morale. So they are absolutely, they're very, very, very strong. Now you can no longer use party teleportation at all with your main party because you have no teleporter, but you can use mass teleportation. You can use the call to arms, as I recommend, to kind of buff your swarm. But you also get another unique ability that you can actually do every 7 days, and this will summon to your fort. Well, you can actually click this onto your army directly, so I don't know why it says fort. But you're going to get 30 locust swarms, 20 spider swarms, and 10 Vescavar swarms. So basically, as long as you don't forget to cast this, this is the equivalent of recruiting those every single week. So this takes place of your recruitment, and again, you can combo it with the call to arms every 15 days. Now let's take a look at what these guys are like in combat. Now in combat, they look pretty similar. I mean, they are technically different, but you may not be able to see it on the video. So, here are my locust swarms, and they have this special ability. So if you want to debuff one of these groups, you can go ahead and do that. Here it is. And it does say it's AoE. Interesting. Oh, it's within a 1 foot burst. So you can go here and it'll affect the other two. Even though it only looks like it did one. We shall see. And then you have spells. I like, for example, casting Haste. And take a look at how quickly you can devour things. So you go here. And this one got to double attack. This one got to double move too. And just blow everything up. They're quite resilient for being little bugs. And between the enemies having low morale and you having high morale and innate morale, you're going to get a lot of action. So they just absolutely destroy everything. And your army will grow, but even your basic army that you begin with, you're probably going to be able to steamroll almost everything. You do have your other kind of buffs and debuffs that you can cast before combat, and your kind of attack spells as well. So on hard fights, all I do is I haste, I slow the enemy, and then kind of do selective casting if need be to kind of knock down any AoE paths. And then I do some select AoE cast if it's a really, really tough fight. But this Worm That Walks general is absolutely bonkers. Do note that enemy armies will no longer go for any of your forts since you don't have forts. It appears that they go straight for this army, so you can keep them out and about and just fight things. Now you will also notice that once you turn into a swarm, you will stop getting tired on the overland map. So you're not really going to need to sleep unless you need to sleep for getting spells back if you're a caster, for example. But if you're a martial character, you can just indefinitely move around the map as much as you need. Now in Act 5, you're going to be able to kind of go and do whatever side quests you have left over and make a little progress. But eventually you're going to go towards Is, and you're going to have a quest here that you had picked up. And this is for your Mythic quest line. And again, since we want to unlock your Mythic path tier 9 for your final transformation, we need to follow this. And this is going to happen right before you get to Is. So you're going to move here as if you're heading into Is. And you're going to have a random encounter. And then Anamora says, "Oh, my lady, the greatest of the great, the swarm that will devour the whole world. An elven woman with charcoal black skin and snow-white hair bows deeply before you. Her body is covered in wounds, boils, and lacerations, and insects squirm within the folds of her clothing. Her voice is serene, but her eyes burn with a feverish zeal. I am Anamora. I once served Diskari, and now I bow only to you." The Diskari cultists, "Glory to Zala, glory to the swarm that devours all. The cultists who have accompanied the elf follow her example and bow before you respectfully." Now you can do whatever you want. You can talk to her, but she's about to turn on you. I'm going to go ahead and click Devour Anamora and the cultist. I will feast on your flesh. Unfortunately, it doesn't work, but Anamora says, "We know no greater happiness." Your insects rush towards Anamora. She smiles serenely, and by the time you notice her gloating smirk of triumph, it is too late. As your swarm descends on her, it suddenly feels as though your mind is being torn apart. Thousands of biting, gnawing insects. The pain makes you want to scream, but you cannot even manage to open your lips. Anamora comes closer to you, looks you in the eyes, and grins. "Did you actually think that I would betray Lord Diskari for some insolent mortal? Ha! Your pride will be your downfall. Behold." She pushes aside the hair from her face, and you see a hole has been gnawn in her forehead. "My Lord Diskari has placed a locust within me. It's just like the one nesting inside your body. With its help, I can bind your will. Though, or you thought I would renounce the great Diskari to serve you? Well, now you will renounce your will and begin to serve the great Diskari." Echo of Diskari says, "You are still mortal, Anamora. You love intrigue too much. You feel the need to complicate the simplest things." A ghastly shadow rises up in your peripheral vision. The shadow's voice keeps changing, shifting from the wheezing croak of an old man to the soft, clear voice of a young child. However, the creature's cold, imperious manner does not change. The swarm does not need to subjugate this impostor. I will simply devour her, and everything will be over. Anamora, "Is that so, Echo?" Intrigue. You can hear the spite and sarcasm in the elf's voice. "Tell me, did Lord Diskari instruct you to devour this mortal?" "No, I thought not. You see, Lord Diskari has ordered me to subjugate her and her pathetic swarm. To subjugate, not destroy. You are asking me to disobey direct order. Why might that be? Could it be that you are afraid this mortal will take your place at our Lord's side?" Echo of Diskari, "Nonsense. I am Diskari's beloved creation, the harbinger of his wrath, the most loyal of his servants. I came here to destroy the enemy, the one who has blasphemously declared herself Lady of the Great Swarm. Step aside, Anamora. Let me devour her and bring glory to Diskari." Anamora, "If you are so loyal to your lord, why are you so determined to act against his will? Leave now, or you will incur his wrath." Diskari, the Echo cannot hide his true intentions from the priestess. She sees right through him. The priestess still has mortal desires, and so does the Echo. They argue and bicker, even though they are part of the same swarm. Grow tired of mortals and their pathetic ambitions. That is why I need the similar one. The similar swarm must serve the great swarm. And then you can choose what you want, but I chose to resist. Get out of my mind. And he says, "Spoken like a true mortal, Diskari will rid the similar one of the illusion that she has a mind of her own. Similar one's wishes to become a swarm. I will teach her think like a swarm." Echo of Diskari, as you finish the telepathic conversation with Diskari, your attention is drawn to the two bickering servants Seems that Anamora has won the argument. Ghastly Shadow lets out a roar of frustration. Fine, you can proceed, I'm leaving. But notice, if you allow Lord Diskari's prey to slip through your fingers, he will not forgive you. And there is no reason for you to be here. You shouldn't have come, Anamora turns to you. And now prepare to be reborn. Reject your pathetic ego and accept the will of Diskari as your own. Pain courses through your body. The locust inside Anamora's head acts in unison. The treacherous insect hiding somewhere inside your body. You're in agony, and yet somewhere beyond the veil of pain, thought occurs to you. This process can be reversed. When the priestess attacked your mind, she let down her guard. She is vulnerable and exposed. Surely you can take advantage of her weakness, but how? So you're going to have these options depending on your stats, and they're all very, very difficult and kind of almost impossible. So for me, for example, a Charisma 26, you need to roll like a natural 20 and a plus 6 on here. So most of these I don't have a high enough score to do, but like I'll, for example, do Charisma. Oh, and in this case I succeeded. So in all my normal tests, I failed all of them. So this is the first time I'm going to read a success. So those who wish to become part of the swarm can be controlled as easily as if they were insects. Know this from experience. You reach out, probing the mind of the cultist, select the weakest willed one amongst them, and give him the order. The cultist steps forward and stabs the priestess with the dagger. A moment later, his smoldering corpse falls in a heap at her feet, but it does not matter. He has served his purpose. Pain subsides. The priestess loses her focus and her concentration wavers. You take advantage of the momentary distraction and force your way into her mind. You probe deeper into her Anamora's mind, and she obediently surrenders all her secrets to you, as well as the secret of her master. The abundance of information makes your head spin, but Anamora cannot resist your will. She guides you subconsciously to the most valuable knowledge that she possesses. You see an image of a rift located somewhere in the world wound. It leads directly to the Respeccing Rifts, the realm of Diskari himself. You catch a glimpse of the echo. Looks like he has built a lair there. He is gathering an army, hoping to destroy you once and for all. But now you know where to find him. You find the Respeccing Rifts has been revealed. Now do note, if you fail that check, it lets you check 2 more times. Eventually, you're still going to end up getting this information. Just the story and how much EXP you get is going to be slightly different here, text-wise. Diskari, I've seen enough of this pathetic display. The similar one is strong. That is good. It means that she will be a useful servant for Diskari, but I won't let her have Anamora. Not today. I still need her. The world goes dark around you. You are in complete control of Anamora's mind. It's like food in your mouth. Now, however, it slips from your grasp. When you come to your senses, both the priestess and her entourage are gone. And then you can, choose to say whatever you want. First, I'll finish off Echo, and then I'll kill you, Diskari. Does the similar one tend to fight the Echo in his own lair? Bold, stupid, good. This will make my task easier. Diskari will grant the similar one her freedom for now. Use this time wisely. The more powerful you become, more useful you be to the great Diskari when you join the swarm. Leman Lord voice finally fades from your mind. You're left alone with your thoughts. So at this point, I actually do not recommend you go to Iz, and I'll discuss here on the world map what you should be doing. Now, at this point, you could theoretically go to Iz, but remember, Iz is going to be actually quite tough. I do not recommend you do this. There's going to be a couple things you're going to want to do here in a moment, and then make your way to the Respeccing Rift. This can be a little confusing to find. It looks like it's really close, but it's quite a bit away, and I'll show you exactly how to get there. So this is where you need to go, but if you were to backtrack, you have to actually go all the way up and over here, up and over, and really your starting point is the Pulura Falls. So if you found this, which is south of the Blackwater, you're just going to keep going west here, up and over, back and down and around here. So that's how you're going to get to the Respeccing Rifts. Now I'm going to go ahead and proc a random encounter. I'm going to show you in combat the abilities as well as the mechanic for your swarm growth. Now, here we are in the middle of a combat encounter. Now, I've spent some time leveling up this character, and the process is very simple. You can go and fight quests, you can do whatever you want as far as there's combat, or you're devouring individuals, and you're going to have the size of the swarm increase. Now, my size is 967, and this equates to a tier 3 size of the swarm. So again, this is going to keep going up, and these numbers don't mean anything until it actually increases the size of the swarm. And now this number is what impacts the other abilities. So for review, for example, the Swarmed Infest, for each one of these tiers is an extra 2d8 damage. So 3 times 2, that's 6d8 damage on top of the base 8d8. So now this is going to do 14d8 damage, and this every single round to whatever this is cast on. And again, this can keep scaling up and up and up. The AoE one also scales. This one is +4 plus your swarm size. So in this case, 7d6 AoE damage. And then you have Swarm Form, where here, for example, if you were to turn this on, you would get 7 natural armor bonus. So let's see how this looks like if we cast this first ability on an enemy and just do nothing. You can notice the swarm goes on him. I'm going to just kind of run away from him. And notice, just took 53 damage right there. After 6 seconds, he's already run away. And he's about to die. There you go. Now we can do the AoE one. And remember, when we have the AoE one, it's also 50% chance to miss us. So we can just see, you can see the animation of the swarm. All 3 of these are going to be attacking. And now they're taking AoE damage. They're missing me because of concealment. Now, of course, you can go and fight them in melee too, but I'm using this as an example of how you can just... There you go. They're dying and blowing up. Now, they're supposed to get auto-devoured by definition, and they didn't. So then all you do is you click the Devour ability, select the corpse. There you go. Devours. Now, as I mentioned before, it doesn't always auto-update. But I'm going to show you really quick here. So this was 967. If you go quick save, and then I'm going to quick load. So F5 and F8. Let's see how much that added. So 967, and then it went up to 995. So there are about 10 points each for these enemies. So, you know, this is going to keep going up, and it keeps scaling. Now this is, again, very, very important because you have nobody else to help you out, so you need to be able to deal with large amounts of enemies, and a lot of times what you're going to end up having to do is cast a Swarm Infest to do some dot damage, go into your defensive mode once your health drops to heal yourself, and just kind of tank it up early on. Now once you're at a minimum rank 3 of the Swarm, maybe 4, maybe 5, just depending how powerful your actual core class build is, you can go into Respeccing Rifts. Now, once you're done with this little encounter here, combat encounter, you're going to jump to the other side. And you're going to go down here. And you're going to find Izyagna. And she says, "You are here, I can see, feel, recognize you. Come closer." 3 strange women with ant heads stare at you. They are in chains, and their bodies are covered in ravenous locusts. In some spaces, their flesh has been gnawing away until there is nothing left but bone. But that does not seem to bother them at all. They speak together in perfect unison, although their words occasionally diverge. "My name is Iznaga." And the Diskari intervenes. So it seems that the similar one has entered Diskari's dwelling. She dares to lay a finger on my treasures, her death will be more painful than she can possibly imagine. And you can ask her, "What do you want from me?" She says, "These 3 bodies of Diskari's trophies," playthings, they're captives, "they are not important. If they die, I can bear new ones. But a part of my essence, true self, wholeness, is bound within them. You can do what I cannot. I know what you do not. We should help each other, gain freedom, topple Diskari. This in parentheses is basically what she's implying. I want you to kill, devour, desecrate these bodies. They will die, and I shall become whole again. As for you, you will gain, devour, discover, understanding of the swarm. You will learn how to give up your mortal, pathetic, lonely form, and become one, achieve bliss, find truth with the swarm. You will learn how to banish Diskari from your mind, body, thoughts. And the Diskari telepathically tells you, is Yagna, the rebel. She was supposed to become a part of my swarm, and that's what would have happened if the mother of monsters had not interfered. Now the similar one wants to take away the little part of her that I managed to capture. I will not forgive this insolence. I'll devour both of you. If you are not Diskari's ally, then you are his food. This time Diskari's unusual restraint fails him. His rasping voice trembles of hatred and anger. Come to me, devour, free, awaken me. And so you can go ahead and devour her. I will grant your wish. The numerous insects at your command launch themselves angrily at the demon's body and begin to consume her flesh. You cannot hold yourself back any longer. You lean down towards one of the bodies and plunge your hands into her warm flesh. How you hate her and how you desire her, all three is Yagna's bodies scream in unison and arch their backs in agony and ecstasy. Her bodies are consumed bite by bite, and her flesh is digested in countless stomachs. You savor the taste of her flesh. What an exquisite feast. You bite down into one of her ant heads and suck out the acrid brown slime. As you consume Yagna's flesh, you also feel as though you are consuming her knowledge, her secrets, her essence. Look at your own mortal body through the eyes of the countless insects that surround it. You finally understand the meaning of the swarm. Your pathetic mortal form stands between you and your freedom. All this time, you have been trying to protect this frail body from destruction. When you truly become the swarm, you must direct your hatred and hunger against yourself. You must devour yourself. And then you get jumped. Now, after the combat, you can go ahead and go to the right here. You can also go down here. There's a little bit of a treasure. But then you want to go all the way to the end. Echo of Diskari. What are you doing in Diskari's abode? How did you get in here? No, do not answer. I know how. It was Anamora, an insolent mortal who thought herself capable of greatness. Well, it doesn't matter. She prevented me from devouring you before, so I'll devour you now. And then you can chat with him, but, you know, it's time to fight. Then let us decide it like the swarm. We are not mere mortals. One of us will devour the other. That is the highest justice. Your crusade has become a thorn on our side. I will put an end to you once and for all. And now you're going to want to deal with the Echo of Diskari. Again, depending on how powerful you are, this may be easy, hard, or darn near impossible. Now once you do enough damage to strike him down, Echo Diskari will say, the Echo legs give way and he falls to his knees before you. His wounds ooze with a thick, putrid slime. I've lost to an unworthy mortal, but how? I'm part of the swarm. You can hear Diskari's howl of rage in your head. His bellowing voice would shatter the minds of most mortals, but you're no ordinary mortal. You remember the knowledge you took from Yagna. Your nostrils are filled with the sour aroma of the Echo's rancid flesh, a meal prepared specifically for you. You can sense that this is the moment of decision. It is now or never. This is the feast in which you will be both the devourer and the devoured. The feast in which you will be reborn. So this is your final transformation. So begin the feast. For all your talk about the swarm, Echo, you never truly understood it. Behold the true swarm. Yum, 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 yum. Your swarm fills the air. The hum of the insects swells into a buzzing song of triumph. They begin to feast on the Echo and on you. Your transformation has begun. You see through the eyes of every insect. You taste the flesh of the Echo in every mouth. And you feast on your own mortal body. Why did you cling to it for so long? The insects mate, produce offspring, die, and devour one another. The swarm is everything. The swarm devours the swarm. The swarm devours the swarm. The swarm devours the swarm. As the insects feast on the empty husk that was once your mortal form, one of them bites into something unusual. It tastes stranger. Diskari, here it is. This is the locust that gave him the power to bother you whenever you wanted. Diskari no longer holds power over you, but perhaps you should keep this piece of flesh from his swarm intact so that you can continue to communicate with Diskari and learn his plans. But this is up to you. I chose to keep it, and you get to communicate a little bit, and then when you face off with Diskari, it is a little bit later, and I believe in the final encounter, when you fight him one more time, potentially, you get some sort of benefit from it, but it's up to you. But I chose to do this top one. You implant the tiny morsel of flesh into one of your myriad miniature bodies. Diskari wanted to spy on you, but now he will witness your every triumph, whether he wants to or not. You have never felt so free. You are no longer constrained by the limitations of a mortal body. You are the swarm. You are omnipresent. The whole world will become you. So now we've hit Mythic 9. We've done our final transformation, and you've taken a big step in power. So let's take a look at all this. So as we level up our Mythic power here, first things first, you get the new portrait option, which of course I'm going to choose. And then you get another Mythic feat. That's totally up to you what you want to choose. Now we get some really juicy upgrades here. It may only seem like one little thing, but it's very powerful. So we are now Eye of the Swarm. From now on, you are made of the swarm. You gain damage reduction of a swarm and immunity to attacks of opportunity. This is huge because swarms are really hard to hit normally, unless people use like AoE flame attacks, etc. So they're going to have a really hard time damaging you. And again, immunity to attacks opportunity. Your strength and dexterity ability score increases, and it's 4 plus your swarm size, so this can keep going up. Right now, when I leveled, I was swarm 4, so this is going to now give us plus 8 strength and plus 8 dex ability score increase. You also gain immunity to most effects affecting normal mortal bodies, such as poison, disease, paralysis, and stun. So this is huge for keeping you alive. Additionally, while swarm form is active, all your attacks deal additional, and this is 4 plus your swarm size damage, and any opponent that attacks you in melee combat does 4 or is dealt 4 plus swarm size d6 of damage. So you get a damage shield. So right off the bat, we do, since I'm rank 4 right now, that's 8d6 of the damage we deal back to him, and you do an additional 8 damage per hit. But also what's not noted here, and I figured this out eventually, so as long as one of your swarm feasts or swarm infest are going, you're also going to get reach on your attacks. And it's kind of bonkers. I'll show you in a combat in a little bit. But you can hit things from, like, if you see my cursor right here, you can basically like hit this far away. And that's with a one-handed scimitar. Haven't even tested it with a two-hander. So I don't know if that's a bug or working as intended, but you get some crazy reach out of your weapons as well. So you can see, even here, look at my stats already getting buffed up quite a bit to 36 strength and 28 dex. That's not bad. And again, this keeps going up and up and up as you continue to increase your swarm. And a little bit later in the guide, you'll see I get this quite a bit higher in the 2000s, and I'll be like rank 7, I believe, by the end of the guide. Alright, while you're around the Respeccing Rifts, there's also a cool event city called City in the Wasteland. And this is very cool if you're the swarm. So if you go ahead and enter here. It is a warm sunny day in a wound, perhaps too warm and sunny. The Sarkorian wastelands are roaring in the heat of a purple shimmering sun. Even demonic plants are unable to survive here. They suffocate in the red dust of the plains. A hot wind sweeps across the wastelands, leaving your commander with the taste of ash and sulfur in her mouth. The commander can see for miles around in every direction. If there were any enemies nearby, they would not be able to sneak up on her unnoticed. However, it does not look like anyone has survived the excruciating heat in the wound. Only sign of life is the sound of insects buzzing nearby. Their chittering noise sounds like harsh rasping laughter. The heat causes the air to shimmer slightly, and through the haze, the commander notices the walls of a city rising up a short distance from the road. Is this a lost Sarkarian city, a demonic trap, or just a trick of the mind? The walls look real, but perhaps they are only a mirage. The commander realizes that it is impossible to tell from the distance, so she decides to. And you're going to want to explore the mysterious city. The walls are partially buried in red sand, and as the commander draws closer, she realizes that this is not a city, but the sun-bleached remains of a Sarkarian settlement. The buzzing grows louder, and the commander can see the Vescavars perched on the stone slabs as they bask in the sun. Husks of their dead kin crunch beneath the commander's feet with every step. The commander notices rotten wooden pillars covered in faded Sarkarian runes. The tops of the pillars have been gnawed into sharp points, making them look like long wooden stakes. The highest of these pillars seems to be a signpost in the middle of what used to be a busy crossroad. The passage of time has worn away all but 3 words in the signpost: square, marketplace, and gem. The commander decides to, and you can, depending on what your stats are, and obviously there's only one of you, which one you can figure out. So I have a high perception, so I'm going to search for the Vescavar Queen. The Zala examines the houses closely. It looks like a battle took place here. The walls of the house have been damaged or destroyed. On walls left, the roofs are a few wooden beams. When the commander turns her attention to insects, she notices that all the Vescavars seem to be flying in a single direction towards the city square. So haha, we're going to go to the square. The winding streets that leads to the square is lined with particularly destroyed houses. Many of them only have 3 walls, and others are nothing more than piles of rubble. The commander notices more and more Vescavars flying around, and the air is filled with a strange acrid smell. The square is completely empty, but the doors of Gosren Temple swing open. A woman emerges through them and begins to limp towards the commander. She is stripped to the waist, and it looks as though insects are squirming beneath her skin. Livor mortis has discolored her withered, shriveled flesh, turning it a blotchy purple color. She opens her mouth to speak, but the words come out in a low buzz that is neither masculine nor feminine. Vervorvers welcomes you, esteemed guest. Please make yourself at home. The woman falls silent and then collapses to the ground. A small swarm of Vescavar flies out of her motionless corpse. The insects hover near the commander as if waiting for her to follow them. The commander decides to. And then you have an option, and I would recommend following the swarm. The swarm climbs through the air unhindered by the obstacles of the ground. The commander has climbed over debris and walks through the particularly collapsed building to follow the buzzing insects. Finally, the swarm flies down into a blissful, cool, dark hole beneath one of the walls. It does not look large enough for a person to fit through. The commander decides to, and you have an option again. And depending on your stats, so I have a high athletics, so I did try and widen the hull. Zaza makes the hole larger by knocking out a few loose stones and surrounding masonry. The hole is now wide enough for her to fit through safely. The cool, damp air of the underground passage feels good against the commander's hot skin, but the chittering of the Vescars has become even more tense. Now, the wording on this story, I'm guessing you're meant to go to this before you transform at Mythic 9. Because we're now part of the swarm at this point in the story. We don't have like the skin and all that stuff, but yeah, that's neither here nor there. The commander finds herself in a labyrinth of underground passages. These are obviously not natural caverns, although the stonework of the underground aqueduct, quite a rarity for Sarkos, is almost completely hidden under a layer of swarming Vescavars. The walls, the ceilings, the floor squirms and move like the bowels of a living creature. Insects block all the passages except for one, and this passage is growing smaller by the minute, prompting the commander to move faster. The passage ends abruptly, and the commander finds herself staring down into a huge well. The passage is dimly lit. but the bottom of the well is lost in impenetrable darkness. This could be the area beneath the water tower, but it is impossible to know for sure without a map of the city's underground passages. The well is filled with the sound of buzzing Vescavars, and the commander can smell the sweet scent wafting up from the darkness. The smell reminds her of the sweet caramel sold at Canabra City Festival. Memories of that day come flooding back. For a moment, the commander's feet feels as though she is back in the town square. As if in answer to her thoughts, a giant figure of Diskari rises up from the depths of the well. Suddenly, a crossbow bolt pierces the demon lord. The figure dissipates into 1,000 of swarming Vescavars. Both Diskari and the bolt were formed out of insects. More scenes flash before the commander's eyes. Ash and smoke fill the skies during the Battle of Drezen, leaving a sour taste in the commander's tongue. Both familiar and unfamiliar people and place appear for a moment and vanish. It is as if some unknown creature is trying to see the commander's mind and access her memories, yet the creature seems tentative and cautious, almost as if it's seeking the commander's permission. And then you have an option. So allow the hive mind to Vescars into your consciousness, fight back, or, because we're the swarm, try to access the hive mind of the Vescavar, which is what we do. The commander reaches out over mind as she sends her swarm forward to meet the Vescavars. Insects mingle together, and the commander realizes that the new swarm is called Verbovezor. It arrived in Domora a long time ago before the creation of the wound. A mortal whose name has been lost to time summoned it to defend the city against some puny mortal barbarians who have long been forgotten. Domora was unable to drive away the city's new defenders, and it soon became food for the swarm. However, Vorbovozor had grown accustomed to the noise of the city, so the swarm decided to become Domora, and now it aspires to become Golarian, wishes to absorb more thoughts and more ideas. It wants to learn more about the comical movements of the mortal bodies it controls, but to achieve that goal it needs to devour Diskari and all the other demonic rogues who seek to destroy these lands. The swarm searches for answers in the commander's head but finds nothing. And then you can choose to either exterminate, which is basically eat and absorb the swarm, or to tune a new swarm and subjugate it to form a will. Now, I've chosen both of these, testing it out. Supposedly, if you do this attunement, she says she'll come later, so I don't know if you're going to get help later on in the quest line. Devour is supposed to make you more powerful. That's what I chose, although it didn't increase the size of my swarm, so maybe there's a buff we get that's passive, or maybe this is broken, but those are what this is going to lead down to. The subjugation, you're going to get this swarm's help, apparently, in the future. But we're all about eating nom nom, so we're going to do that. The commander's swarm pierces through the chitinous shells of the Vescavars. Thousands of insects bite and nod at one another, and as they tear each other apart, the pain sends the commander into a rage. The two swarm rise and fall together in a maddening frenzy until Verbovezor finally surrenders. Exhausted and triumphant, the commander's swarm briefly dissipates and reforms as it smells the sweet scent of Verbovezor's swarm queen. The commander rushes towards the queen with lightning speed. The swarm tears into her defenseless abdomen. Verbovezor has been defeated. The air goes still and silent, and thousands of dead Vescavars fall to the ground. The commander is free to leave the city. Nothing will stand in her way, but the commander will leave this place stronger than she entered. Her swarm has absorbed Verbovezor and is now bigger and more powerful. Alright, now once you're Mythic level 9, you're pretty much ready to go back to Iz. Now you can, and you probably should, spend some time absorbing and getting more powerful. I came here at level 5. I struggled some, but I was able to get through things. But you may want to go a little longer, depending on your difficulty as well. If you're playing on a high difficulty, you're going to have to really spend some time power leveling, because it can be pretty tough. Now, there are 3 things to do in this area. Visit Temple of Stone manuscripts, find a Sword of Valor, and find Queen Galfrey. And I ran into a bug, no pun intended, that if you do this incorrectly, you're going to miss the Sword of Valor. So I wanted to show you how to do this correctly and where the bug is. Maybe this gets fixed in a patch, but basically I did this incorrectly. I did the event, and I didn't get credit because I chose the wrong thing. So let me show you what happens. So right when you begin here, you're going to zone in, you're going to talk to the demon lady, and then you're going to come here and we're going to first run into the captain. And Holron's like, Commander, or something that has taken her form, stay where you are. Not some evil sorcery, not an illusion, not a trick, yet it seems really you. But how? Didn't you perish in the abyss half a year ago? And you can talk to him however you want, but this one you can feel pretty safe from my findings. Devour him. So devour the knights, your strong inquisitor swarm will take your strength. And he says, I knew you were a heretic and traitor the moment I saw you. Why didn't I destroy you back in Canabras? Oh well. And you eat him. Now, for whatever reason, you leave his dudes alive, and they just stand there. Don't mind them. And then when you go up here, you're actually going to go, and this is going to be the Sword of Valor. And there's the Sword of Valor, and there's going to be a fight with all the monsters. So you're going to want to go ahead. Make sure go into the center here. For whatever reason, I was fighting on the outskirts, and then this did not proc correctly. But I'll go ahead and fast forward this fight here in a second. And you're gonna see the event. Now notice I want to show off also my range. See this? I'm way back here and I'm hitting them. This is because, again, for whatever reason, once you hit Mythic 9, you get crazy reach. Look how far away I'm hitting him from way back here. And just annihilated him. So you can basically, with a melee weapon, now that you're Mythic rank 9, hit from anywhere. And then right there you see that transition. If you did it right, it goes to here. Now I had a time where it didn't proc this, and the guys were just standing around, and you didn't get this part. So you have defended the Sword of Valor once more. And see our commander, welcome back. Now, here are the options. Diskari says to you, the similar one has restored her lost strength. Good, I need strong slaves. Now it's time for sustenance. The stout muscular bodies of the crusader will sate the similar one before she meets with me. Now, here's the bug I found. If you go ahead and devour him, saying you're strong, good, the swarm will feed your strength, you eat them, but it does not auto-complete the quest. And it will bug you out where you will not complete this part of the quest. So basically, you have to either say nothing or one of the other options and let things go positively. Now you're welcome to save it. See, now I got the credit for it. And try this out. Maybe by the time you watch this has been patched. But for me, it doesn't work. And so you wouldn't get the credit. He would be dead. And then this would be here, but there's nothing you could do. So just let that be a warning. Now, once you're done dealing with the commander, which was right around here, and then getting the Sword of Valor, it's very easy. You can get kind of lost in all these ruins, all the movements, but what you actually want to do is go all the way up or the left hand corner. This is where the temple is going to be. And when you go into the temple, the main thing you're here for is you're going to run into an old friend of yours. Here's Anamora. This is the one that basically, if you remember, you went outside of Iz and she tricked you and tried to basically subjugate you. So Anamora paid dearly for her failure during your last encounter. Her face is gone, a crimson pulp instead of skin, a hole where her nose used to be, maggots squirming all over. She has a single eye left, and it is glaring at you with a wicked malice. Last time you managed to get away, and now you come here. Why? So that Lord Diskari could give you the honor of gorging on you personally? The floor under her feet is cluttered with shards of stone tabs, remains of acid-burned scrolls. And Amora is destroying the archives, and by looking at it, most of the library has already been disposed of. The only thing that's still intact is a single crystal that looks similar to the one you saw in Arelu's laboratory. And you can talk to her as much as you want, so you ran away from me when we last met. And she said, lies, a spray of blood spit flies from her mouth along with the hysterical shriek. I defeated you. Not for your cheap tricks, you wouldn't have escaped. And then you can say, Arella Voroash warned me to try to destroy these archives. What do you have to say to that? Robershah the traitor. Hatred seeps into Anamora's silky voice. Why hasn't the Lord deprived her of her rank yet? Think that after the death of the Echo, Earl has essentially become our Lord's archpriestess. She's never truly been loyal to him. She's not even a priestess, and yet she's still eclipsed me. But let us not dwell on this. Having regained her equanimity, she speaks smoothly and steadily once more. You were asking why I would need to destroy the Temple of Stone Manuscripts? Answer you, because the time has come. The very last memories of Sarcosis must be erased. Undone, today this place serves as a feast for the swarm. Now you have some options of what you can say here. You can attack her, or you could say, you lied to me, but I'll give you a chance to redeem self-swell royalty to me truthfully this time. Let's see what happens when you select that. And it says, the swarm knows neither loyalty nor treason. The swarm serves our master's will, not because it is loyal, but because no other option is possible. Your offer is senseless. You can devour me, but you cannot subdue me. And here's the option you were waiting for. Evil, then you will be destroyed. Your own swarm will turn upon you. The locusts crawling all over Nemo's body buzz in unison with the humming that never stops in your ears. She looks at you, and the terror in her eyes is mingled with awe. Without a word, she kneels before you. And then the locusts on her body, they are your locusts now, sink their mandibles into her skin, crawl into her mouth and nose, her eyes and ears, devouring her from the inside. Yes, mistress, she says before her lifeless body collapses at your feet. Now, once you're done with the Temple of Stone Manuscripts, it's actually rather easy, and you can kind of go down here to where the dragon is and the queen to interact with them. And there's going to be a little there's a little animation here. And they get their butts whooped, of course. And then you got to deal with the dragon. So once you kill the dragon, of course, it has a little thing here, and Erebeth is dying. You can say whatever you want.
What?
And then it's time for you to face the queen.
My Tirabade. You have returned, Commander.
And she's surprised you're back, and you have this lovely option here. Acquire Swarm Mythic Pack, Devour Galfrey. You've survived just to become food for the Swarm Queen.
Iomade, grant us strength.
And she's not happy, but she got no chance. And just like that, you eat the queen. GG. Now, once you're done dealing with the queen, the last kind of swarm-related thing is to go fight Diskari. And so you can make your way down and across here. And it's a little tricky because you got to jump across different ravines, etc. So you'll go down here, up, around here, and then finally end up here. And then let's take a look at Diskari.
You are bad at pretending to be uninterested, imposter. I know you came down from heaven and even scooped to a conversation with that flighty killer Nocticula, the Crusader goddess, and the Lady in Shadow. So that is how far you are willing to go to be rid of me. You wanted to make this mortal your weapon. When you realized you had failed, you tried to destroy her. But you couldn't do that either. Tell me, imposter, how could you hope to defeat me when you've been humbled even by my diminutive likeness?
And we get a great option that says, attack Diskari's mind, submit to me, insect. This is because we're still connected with him. Diskari must not have been expecting you to use his own weapon against him. You will bites into his mind, and you both stand frozen in unseen battle. You feel the bitter taste of his path, pain, with a slight but distinct thing of fear. Diskari ultimately regains control over his body, but its small victory has come at a heavy cost.
My likeness, my diminutive, imperfect copy, my mortal food. Where did you acquire such strength?
And now you have your one-on-one battle with him. So hopefully you're strong enough. Again, just by clearing this level, you're gonna notice your swarm is gonna get more powerful. Here I got to almost almost 2400 side of the swarm. So I'm level 6, and that was pretty good for me. But again, depending on your character build and your difficulty, you may need to have this higher potentially. Again, you're going to get more and more powerful the higher that level is. But then you go ahead and fight them. And here is after the fight. A deep moan bellows over the area, feels as if the very stone of Is, the ancient range ravaged capital of Psychosis, are crying in pain under the unbearable weight.
Impossible! I am chaos and death! I am the end of times! I cannot be defeated!
And you have a unique Swarm Mythic Path response. There can only be one swarm. Is that it? I am the swarm. You are the food. For a moment you see in your mind's eye the square in Canabras where it all began. Except now you two have switched places. Diskari is the one teetering at the edge of the chasm while you stand firm. The vision fades, but your power responds to it and erupts in a single mighty torrent. Your body tenses, the wound in your chest bursts into flames, bleeding heavily as if trying to kill you, but can this stop you? Now, when you are a step away from victory? No. So that's going to complete your swarm related actions and now we're going to go ahead and go back to Drezen. Alright, now as soon as you return to Drezen and you go back into town, you're going to actually want to go to the Citadel, and this is going to proc another event where you're going to get another option for choosing new units. Now before that happens, you'll have, here's just Mara. That comes in to talk to you from Winter Sun, and I just choose to devour her, but you can do whatever you want. There is no hope for the people of Winter Sun. And here's your option. So the cultists who have entered the hall look tougher and savvier than the others. Their gaze do not wander, and the movements are precise and confident. Greet you with a deep bow. Mistress, the lookouts of Is heard your voice. We have rejected the false idol, have come to worship you. We humbly beg you to accept us into the true swarm. And you can ask, how can you help me? We are skilled warriors. Most warriors of the false idol are bloodthirsty and destructive, but not very selective in choosing targets. They rush headstrong long into the battle, but our arrows strike mages, priests, and sorcerers hidden behind the warriors' shields. Given the order, and we will rain iron on the enemy spellcasters, and then we will bring you their heads pierced by arrows. So you're gonna have some options here, and there's some unique options here. Now, if you accept them into your swarm, I expected rangers, but what you actually get is 500 cultists of the swarm. These are your weak ones that are 25 health and 6 AC, and 400 cultist cutthroats. So I was confused about this because these have 91 hit points, 14 AC, 5 to 7 melee damage. So I'm assuming the stat line isn't there for the archery part of it, but that is an option if you want it. I didn't choose that one. You also have 2 more options. You can join them, have them join you as food, and that will give you options again for the spiders, etc. And we'll take a look at that as an option in a second, but I want to show you the third option, which I originally chose. And this is Devour the Rangers. You are strong, I will take your strength for myself. If you do this, you actually get Sting of the Swarm feat, and you get an additional 2d6 extra damage to sneak attacks. So if you're like a slayer like me, this just ups your sneak attack even more. So I like that. And then you get 180 Spider Swarm, 250 Locust Swarm, and 75 Vescovar Swarm. So that's option 2. But I did want to show you the final option. So if you join the swarm as food, and they're like very happy about it still, you can either upgrade your spiders You can get 700 spiders, and spiders get absorption, so the unit's next attack will deal 1d6 plus 3 times unit number damage to the target unit. So that's an ability you can add to those. Or you can get 1,000 locusts, and the locust swarm get the absorption ability for them. Same exact thing. Or for Vescavars, you can get 300 Vescavars, and they'll get the absorption. So that's pretty nutty. And I would say that it's probably the most efficient with locusts, because you have the highest amount of locusts. And this absorption, as you can kind of see, it's 1d6 plus 3 no matter what, times the amount of units. So if you have a couple thousand locusts, that's going to be a big hit. So those are your options. And again, I chose to buff myself, but you can choose whatever you want. Now once you return and do that little event, you now return and you see your forces here in Drezen. And we get this lovely interaction that I'll go with you over. The gates of Drezen are open wide, and the army that came back from Iz is standing before you. Hundreds of eyes are watching your triumphant return to your city. The cultists erupt in a discordant hymn, praising your name. The street behind them are almost empty. There are only insects where the townfolk should be. All of Drezen is abuzz of the droning of the swarm. The Crusaders of Mendev watch you with fear and hatred, muttering through clenched teeth.
Welcome back, Commander. We heard the news. I can't believe Her Majesty's gone.
Navia finds it difficult to speak. Her pale face is devoid of emotion. She moves and talks like a clockwork automation and not a person. She has already heard about Irabeth's demise.
But that's just the latest name in the long, long list of your victims. This ain't a crusade anymore. It's senseless slaughter. The Knights of Mendev put up with you and the Queen's orders, but that's all over now. They're going back to Mendev to strengthen its borders, and I'm leaving with them.
Oh, no, 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 no. And we're going to finish what we started here. Require Swarm Mythic Pact, Devour the Mendevians. Nobody leaves this place. The Swarm never lets food go to waste. The droning song of the swarm, previously humming in the background, rises to a deafening shriek. The insects soar into the air above and descend upon the Mendevians. Myanmar, the scholar, bravely falters. At the very last, she turns around and tries to flee, leaving her back exposed for the killing blow. So the insane half-elf is dead. Nyastra, the enchantress, raises her hands. Fire starts flickering in her palms, but her fingers are reduced to bones even before she can finish the first syllables of the spell.
Beth, I am coming to you.
And everybody gets devoured. Now the Mendevian crusade is truly over. The queen is dead, and so are her knights. Only the swarm remains, immortal, immutable, triumphant. Time seems to stand still in the square. Cultists fall silent and watch with bated breath. The incessant buzzing of insects dies down. You realize that every eye is fixed on you. And you can choose. Drezen is my lair, the nest of my swarm. Those who encroach upon it become food for my swarm. Or, the swarm has no need for cities and citadels. Only the ruins will remain after my victory, but I will be ever present. And I kind of like Drezen, so I chose the top one. I think it alters your story at the end of the game. Galunda Adept, Nest of the Overlord, our nest. Those who encroach will become food for the swarm. The cultists shake their fists as they repeat your words. The insects join in with a high-pitched whine. The similar one thinks she has a separate future away from my swarm. How brave, I approve. But the truth cannot change. For the similar one and all mortals, there's no future beyond Diskari. And you can talk to him, and for example, what will happen after we achieve victory? The swarm will move on to the depths of the world wound, into the abyss itself. And I will start by feasting on this Diskari and subjugating his swarm. Devour the false idol, devour his swarm, devour all of the abyss. Heresy, Diskari is the one who devours everyone. The threat and curses of the demon lord merge into barely discerning rasping. Diskari is used to having the last word, but this time he has nothing to say to you. His voice is soon lost among the belligerent shouts of the crowd, the buzzing of your swarm. The storyteller appears behind you, as if from nowhere. By some miracle, the blind elf survived the massacre. It is almost as if he has neither taste nor scent. Your insects uninterestedly pass him by. Such is the final act of the great tragedy. The goddess's knights fought against armies of demons in the bloody fields, but in the end both fell to an onslaught of countless tiny teeth. Woe to the defeated, glory to the conquerors. The walls of proud Drezen could not save it from the exultation of the swarm, so the swarm will own this place. Who dares to doubt the rightness of this grim outcome? So now you get the last mission, the last steps, and it's all about going to the threshold. Now, I'm not going to spoil the last parts of the little story. However, do note that you have to go there, and you do have to face a deadly enemy in order to unlock your Mythic rank 10. And I do want to show you what that looks like and the final feature. So I'm going to load from that point in the game. I'll try to minimize the little spoiler there. But again, just note, there's nothing really trick-wise. You just have to be really powerful, and you got to head to Threshold and just make your way through. It's a straight shot with a bunch of tough enemies and a couple bosses, and then you're going to get to what you're going to see right now. Alright, upon hitting Mythic 10, let's take a look what we get. So we do get one more Mythic ability. Now next, we get the feature called the Swarm. You become the Swarm. Your intelligence, wisdom, and charisma ability score are increased by 4 plus your swarm size. So again here, if you're level 7 or so, that's already going to be an extra plus 11 to intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. You gain spell resistance equal 25 plus your swarm size. So again, that'd be like 32 if you're swarm size 7. And you gain immunity to most harmful conditions. You're immune to exhaustion and fatigue effects. Your swarm form grants you a +2 profane bonus on stealth skill checks for camouflage roll, and a +10 profane bonus on perception skill checks for night watch during rest and movement on global map. So this is a pretty amazing increase to make you even more well-rounded, but it's not even the coolest feature. But what we really care about is this final feature here, and it's ridiculously powerful, Swarm Clone. You gain the ability to make your own clones using your swarm. They have all your abilities, but separate inventories. You can simultaneously have one clone for 3 points of your swarm size. So I'm level 7 here, and we add this new ability, and it's pretty amazing. So all you do is you click this, it channels, takes a couple seconds, and you have a new clone. You hit the M button, you can name him. Name this one Kerrigan, why not? And lo and behold, same abilities, everything, same character, same stats, same powers. You just have a clone of yourself. You're obviously going to want to equip it with the best equipment you can here, however you want. And what's crazy is they also get the same swarm abilities. So in theory, you could, for example, activate the Swarm Feast AoE. And so at level 7, for example, that's 11d6 physical damage from both of you, 22d6. But for example, since I am tier 7, I can get another clone. And it is exactly the same. You get a triplet, basically. So I'll just call this one Clone 2. And if you spent more time and it kept leveling up the swarm, not only are your abilities, but if I were at 9, I would get to summon another one. Now, I do want to point out here, and I basically figured this out while recording this video right now. I had to correct myself. This is definitely bugged because you're only supposed to have one clone per 3 points of your swarm size. I'm only size 7. I'm supposed to be able to have 2. But just randomly clicking it again, I was able to keep summoning it, so I was able to get a full group of 6 clones, or 5 clones and me. So a mega swarm. And again, just exponential damage, but in theory, you're supposed to be tier 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 before you get a full party. I'm sure that will get patched, but for now, just imagine running. You could spam all your abilities, all identical, or super powerful. You basically have 6 god characters. This is why, as I mentioned at the beginning of this guide, the swarm grows in power exponentially more than any other pathway. You build it up enough and it becomes indestructible and just melts anything, but it will take time. If you get it at the very beginning, you're going to feel squishy and pretty shitty probably, but no, you put a lot of work into it, it'll be worth it. So with that being said, guys, this is my ultimate guide to the swarm that walks. I hope you guys like it and appreciate it. If you do, make sure to like, subscribe, smash that notification bell to be notified of new videos. Do drop down comments for me. Let me know what kind of videos you want to see me do. This video was chosen and made because of a vote on a community site, as well as the comments in my previous videos. This is why we chose this pathway next. Of course, you can also see all my other social medias, information, as well as ways to support me and my channel in the description below. And as always, guys, thank you as always, and I will see you guys in the next video.